Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Two Dads, One Car, where we talk about modern fatherhood. My friends, this is going to be a different episode than normal. It's going to be more of a self-reflection episode because Father's Day was just this past weekend. I took a little longer to record this episode because I really want to get my hair cut properly. So for those who are watching the video, you can see the haircut in some sense. But all jokes aside, Father's Day was this past weekend, and it really allowed me to reflect upon this past year. Thanks to you, to the audience, we've had some really incredible high-profile guests, and I just want to detail 3 of them that really resonated with me, but also in terms of the statistics that resonate with you. And so with that, we'll get started with my top 3 for 2025 so far. The very first one is with Dr. Gordon Neufeld. Dr. Gordon Neufeld was interesting and fascinating for me because he was actually our first parenting expert, dare I say, that we had on the show. His book is called Hold On to Your Kids, and it was one of my favorite books of 2025. My physiotherapist recommended it. And after I read the book, and after I saw that he was actually based here in Vancouver, I swung big, I emailed him, and fortunately he was down to be interviewed. And this was such a fascinating conversation. In his book, he detailed the power of child and parent relationships versus peer-to-peer. And my big takeaway is that sometimes we over-index on peer-to-peer relationships, right? We talk about, how do we socialize our kids at a young age? How do we make sure they're ready for society? Things like that. But I think the paradigm shift in his book is that what's truly important is actually the child-to-parent kind of relationship. Because once we lean on peer-to-peer too much, that's where we end up with our kids might not be listening to us. And they're probably not anyways, right? But it was an interesting paradigm shift, and it's probably not the most popular opinion, but his book has been out for 20 years. He rewrote it last year to capture the post-pandemic world. It's a bestseller, and it's a really interesting framework. I highly recommend it. It's backed by research, a lot of science, but it was such a fascinating conversation. And moreover, he's living the life I want to live when I'm retired, right? Travels around the world to speak and to write books. It's such a dream life, and so we'll pick on that later on. That was the first episode. Okay, second episode that really resonated with me was actually a surprise. This was a surprise favorite based on statistics. It was actually the father of my mentee, Minh Ngo. And so same last name, we're not related, but it was such a heartwarming conversation. Now, so Minh has 2 children, 2 kids, not kids, they're 2 children who are in college, right? So one is in law school, the other is just in the middle of his undergrad right now. And so clearly he's doing something right. I've met both of them, and I really, it's like, Minh, what is the secret? Like, how do you do this? Because a lot of my guests, they have kids who might be a little younger, but he's clearly raised 2 very independent, self-aware, and very kind people into the world. And so I really picked his brain on this episode, and I loved his story about being the chief encouragement officer, right? Really being there to kind of support and cheer your kids on, and being hyper aware and intentional about their relationships, but also being there as their biggest supporter. And the fact that his kids still call him like daily and like throughout, my gosh, it made me feel bad because I barely called my dad and my mom, and still less so my mom now. So really fascinating conversation, really popular one. I love that one with Minh. Okay, my third episode of 2025 is actually with probably one of our biggest VIPs yet, aside from Cal. Cal is a big VIP, but this year it was with Jagmeet Singh, sorry, mispronounced his first name. Jagmeet Singh. For those in Canada, this is a very familiar name. He's a leader of the federal NDP party, ran for election, didn't get re-voted in. But besides that, Jagmeet really struck me as someone who is both as personable on camera and off camera. He has 2 kids. I've seen him bring his kids onto the campaign trail. And the fact that he talks about his habits of fatherhood, the fact that he ensures that he's out in nature every day, he ensures that he has this meditative, reflective time. Because, my gosh, as a leader of a major political party, like, there's a lot on the go. But he just channeled this essence, this peace, this love, this energy about him. And so the conversation, I was grinning left and right. Just the fact that I had Jagmeet sitting next to me and just talking about fatherhood. One of definitely my top 3 of this year. And I have a bonus favorite episode is actually with my dear friend Gregor Jeffrey. Gregor is probably one of the first repeat guests, and the reason why it was so memorable as a bonus is because we actually filmed this one when I was down in Mexico. So my wife and I and our daughter and my mom, we were down in the Cancun region in January for a week. And one of the big goals when I first recorded with Gregor 2 years ago is like, if this podcast is still going and thriving, we're going to film a follow-up episode, because he literally moved his family from Victoria, BC to live in Mexico as expats. And so he has a second one on hand. And in this one, we really dive deep into cognition. Gregor is really known for his work for public speaking and speech coaching and working with C-suite executives. Him and I work together as well in terms of my media presence and the way I communicate. A lot of this is actually attributed to Gregor's work and the way that I'm speaking today here on camera, actually through the audio. But in this one, we talked about, cognitive preferences about our children, right? There is the social preference, structural preference, there's the analytical preference, and more, right? The conceptual preference. And so in this one, we really dived into what does it look like in our children? How do we adapt? My big takeaway is that, his son Ro takes a very structural approach to the way he learns. And that's really not his comfort zone, not his wife's comfort zone. But understanding that the children we have, they might not have the same cognitive preferences that we do. And just being able to be mindful of that and using that as a tool to, as we parent and as we talk and as we coach. Really great episode. And I just loved just driving through the small town and avoiding potholes, and just, it was a great conversation and a great video as well too. And with that, I think this concludes my top 3 highlights plus a bonus of 2025. My wife just called me. I had to push end. But I will wrap up this recording by saying thank you. Thank you to the guests who came on the show this year. Thank you to the listeners like you. Thank you to my podcast producer, Baron, to Trixie for running Point on social media, to my dear friend Jessica for advising on the bigger strategic elements. Without the 3 of you, this wouldn't be where we are. And without the listeners like you who are spreading the word, it makes a huge difference. Word of mouth is the best way of spreading this podcast. And so if you liked it, definitely like, subscribe. We're on YouTube, we're on Spotify, we're on Apple Podcasts. My basement tenant just waved at me. He's like, why am I talking randomly to a camera? But with that, thank you for the support. I love that you're part of this journey. And for those who are new, I welcome you. Welcome to the 2 Dads, 1 Car family. I love to stay in touch. And with that, we'll close this out. We'll close out the solo episode, and we'll chat again very soon. Cheers.